It's Thursday, August 17. In the headlines in local news, Jamaica's dengue cases increased. Government to spend billions on medicine and medical supplies. In business news, gas and diesel prices are up. Regionally, maritime boundary line between the Bahamas and the Turks and Caicos Islands. Internationally, Georgia prosecutor seeks March trial for Donald Trump in election meddling case. And in sports, reggae girls Alison Swaby to play for AC Milan. This is the news on PBC Jamaica. I'm Simone Absalom Gale. It's going to cost nearly $30 billion to purchase medicine and procure medical supplies and equipment for the public health sector. Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton says several agreements were signed Tuesday for the purchase of medication from suppliers through the National Health Fund, NHF. He shared the information at Wednesday's post-cabinet press briefing at the office of the Prime Minister.
$27 billion for medication through the National Health Fund, and a number of contracts were awarded over a 3-year period.
The Minister of Health says nearly 1 million Jamaicans will benefit from this initiative.
The amount that we have spent on drugs has gone up over 100%. In fact, 3 years ago, when the last agreement was achieved, it was some 19 billion. Today it's 27 billion. And if you go back to the 7-year period, it's quite a lot more.
Dr. Tufton says funding will be provided to regional authorities to procure and maintain equipment at hospitals and health centers.
We found that it was not based on the existing policy, which was fairly ad hoc. And we have been transparent in outlining that 1,853 pieces of equipment for regional authorities. 15% deemed non-functional, 39 fairly functional, and 47 fully functional. If you put the 47 on the 39, clearly you get a much higher figure than the 47 that was quoted as with the impression that only 47 was working. It's not actually the case. It's closer to 80+%. However, of that amount, probably half is not as efficiently functioning as it ought to.
You should know that the NHF was established to help Jamaican residents access subsidized medication in both the public and private health sectors through the provision of the NHF card and the Jamaica Drug for the Elderly program. It also manages a medical warehouse and over 118 pharmacy locations in the public health system. Jamaicans are being advised to remain vigilant in the wake of an increase in dengue cases. Dengue is a viral infection that spreads from mosquitoes to people. The most common symptoms are high fever, headache, body aches, nausea, and rash. Data from the ministry's surveillance unit shows a 13% increase in cases of the mosquito-borne disease since the start of the year, when compared to the 2021-2022 epidemiological year. 9 cases of type 2 dengue virus have been reported in 4 parishes: Kingston and St. Andrew, St. Thomas, St. Catherine, and Westmoreland. According to the Health Ministry, while the increase in dengue activity is observed, Jamaica is not currently experiencing an outbreak. The ministry has also put in place enhanced public education and vector control measures, including community-based vector control workers. Director General of the Statistical Institute of Jamaica, Statin, Carol Coy, says efforts are being made to conclude the twice-delayed 2022 population and housing census. The census, which commenced last September, was slated to end in March 2023, but the Institute advised that the deadline would not be met and that a new timeline would be set. Ms. Coy addressed the matter during a virtual press brief this week.
As unemployment rates decline, persons are less inclined to take up more strenuous and short-term jobs like data collection. In addition to our initial recruitment drive, Secondary recruitment efforts were targeted in areas without census workers. A significant number of persons indicated that they were either no longer interested, they found other means of employment, or they deemed that the work would be too hard, and some persons actually failed the minimum training requirements.
Ms. Coy also said the institute was not in a position to say what percentage of the country has already been covered.
These include the introduction of teams comprised of experienced and efficient data collectors in targeted areas to quickly canvass an enumeration district, the deployment of web questionnaires, and an abbreviated version, or what we call the short form, of the census questionnaires.
The census captures information on the housing stock in the country and key social and demographic information that informs policy. It also determines where to put schools, clinics, and other government services. Motorists traveling along Hagley Park Road in Kingston can expect minor delays this weekend beginning Friday, August 18. The National Works Agency says traffic will be reduced to single-lane movement along sections of the corridor between 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. over a 3-day period. Acting Manager of Communication and Customer Services at the National Works Agency, Stacey Ann Delevante, explains in a press release that the restriction to single-lane movement will be done to facilitate corrective works on manhole covers along the corridor. Restoration of a normal traffic flow is expected to resume on Sunday, August 20. The legal process for asylum continues for 37 Haitians who landed in Portland in July. Minister of National Security, Dr. Horace Chang, says they are receiving the highest level of support. He visited the Haitians at the facility in Robbins Bay, St. Mary, on Monday, August 14.
The Passport and Immigration Department have identified all of them, and I have no reason to believe that any of them are criminals. That's part of the early process. As immigrants coming in, they are checked, monitored for health as well as their identification.
He says safeguards have been put in place for the Haitians' safety.
Now, this is a very secure facility. It's not a prison or lockup, but it's secure, and the police is here to protect them as well as to prevent them getting off into other activities. And the Red Cross and the other supporting teams are all here to ensure that they are safe and that they are well looked after, as their own spokesman have said.
Haiti is facing a humanitarian crisis with millions of citizens facing acute hunger. The situation is compounded by increasing violence and insecurity, forcing many to flee their homes or leave the country. The matter of providing asylum to those who are eligible was addressed by Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, Senator Kamina Johnson-Smith.
As I spoke with some gentlemen today, of the work you did before in construction, the studies you pursued. So we know that you wait to start the next phase of your life. And we hope the process works well for you.
Senator Johnson-Smith said, along with ensuring the rights of the Haitians who entered Jamaica recently by boat, the country is pressing the international community for greater support for Haiti.
Jamaica has been, and I have been, and internationally advocating for greater support to Haiti, to the Haitian National Police, and to ensure that there is a new electoral process.
Time now for the business report with Danita Rodney.
Motorists should see an increase at the pumps in the price of gasoline effective Thursday, August 17, according to the latest ex-refinery cost from Petrojam. with both grades of gasoline up by $4.50. 90-octane gasoline will sell for $188.71 per liter, while 87-octane will sell for $184.20 per liter. Continuing with the $4.50 increase, automotive diesel fuel will sell for $180.03 per liter, and the ultra-low sulfur diesel will sell for $188.14 per liter. Kerosene increased by $3.06 will sell for $184.34 per liter. Propane liquid petroleum will sell for $64.69 per liter, down by 25 cents, and butane liquid petroleum will sell for $172.78 per liter after an increase of 25 cents. Remember that marketing companies and retailers will add their respective markups to these prices. The Statistical Institute of Jamaica Statin has reported that inflation for July 2023 peaked at 1.1%. The announcement was made by Statin's Director General, Carol Coy, during the company's quarterly press briefing.
The July 2023 CPI was 130.8 compared to 129.5 for the previous month. This resulted in an inflation rate of 1.1%. Influencing the inflation rate was a 2.3% increase in the index for the heaviest weighted division, food and non-alcoholic beverages.
The results are said to affirm the Bank of Jamaica's forecast that inflation rate may temporarily rise again above their inflation target range of 4 to 6%. Now for your market updates. In foreign exchange trading for Wednesday, August 16, the US dollar sold for an average of $155.55. The Canadian dollar ended trading at $116.36. The pound sterling traded for $199.21, and the euro sold for $167.14. In JSE trading, the JSE index declined by over 192 points. The junior market index advanced by over 95 points. The combined market index advanced by over 692 points, and the All Jamaican Composite Index advanced by over 222 points. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 98 stocks, of which 39 advanced, 44 declined, and 15 traded firm. Stocks advanced for 138 Student Living Jamaica Limited, AMG Packaging and Paper Company Limited, and CAC 2000 Limited. Stocks declined for 138 Student Living Jamaica Limited Variable Preference, Access Financial Services Limited, and Barita Investments Limited. Trading firm were Cargo Handlers Limited, Caribbean Assurance Brokers Limited, and Dermont Trading Company Limited. The overall volume leaders were Sterling Investments Limited with over 13 million units, Stanley Motor Limited Ordinary Shares with over 6 million units, and Lasco Manufacturing Limited with over 4 million units. In regional stocks, in Trinidad and Tobago, 0 securities traded. On the Barbados Stock Exchange, Epley Caribbean Property Fund Value Fund was the volume leader with 18,000 shares. They were followed by Cape Shepherd and Company Limited and Insurance Corporation of Barbados Limited, which traded 480 and 110 shares respectively. In regional business places in Barbados are being encouraged to consider creating employee assistance programs or EAPs to help workers cope with challenges they may be facing. The suggestion has come from President of the Human Resource Management Association of Barbados, Nicholas Roberts.
It is only through those programs that I think are very valuable, and when organizations don't use them, we do not get the best out of our employees, because when employees are having issues and they come and they offload on their HR practitioners, or they come and offload on their managers can only give tips and advice from their point of view. But I think it is through speaking to the professionals, they can really take it to the next level to help people to operate better within their lives, both professionally and personally.
Allowing people the time to have regular breaks, having professionals like myself come into the workplace and have, regular talks and discussions. There ought to be flexibility with the work. I think we've been through the pandemic and realized that we can do a lot of things without being in the workplace. And I don't think that we should throw the baby out with the bathwater and, dismiss some of the gains that we've made or that the pandemic actually has shown us. And people should, I believe, be afforded choice to become more autonomous in how they work. If the work allows that they can work remotely, then allow them to have that flexibility.
In international business, Wall Street's main indexes ended lower after minutes from the Federal Reserve's July meeting showed that central bank officials could continue to hike interest rates this year to tame still sticky inflation.
The Dow shed 0.5%, the S&P 500 lost nearly 0.8%, and the Nasdaq shed more than 1%. The minutes of the Fed's July meeting showed most policymakers continued to prioritize the battle against inflation, creating more uncertainty for investors as to whether or not the Fed is actually done raising interest rates. The minutes come as Fed officials prepare for their annual meeting in Jackson Hole, Wyoming next week, where Fed Chair Jerome Powell is expected to speak and likely, quote, stick to the party line, says Ross Mayfield, investment strategy analyst at Baird.
While we've seen a little bit of softening in the labor market, it's still imbalanced in a way that makes them uncomfortable. You still see wages pushing on overall price inflation. So I think next week it's going to be very much more of the same, which is more hawkish than probably the market would like, indicating that additional rate hikes could be on the horizon.
Among individual movers, bank shares extended losses, with the S&P 500 bank index down and Bank of America down more than 2%, leading losses among bigger banks. Nvidia also reversed early gains to close down 1% after rising in the last two sessions, as two more brokerages raised their price targets on the stock ahead of the chip designer's quarterly results next week. And Target shares gained 3% after the big box retailer's second quarter profit beat estimates.
In market data for oil prices crept up after China's central bank sought to stem the rising tide of pessimism over the country's property market and wider economy. Brent crude futures rose 60 cents to $84.05 a barrel, and West Texas Intermediate crude was up 61 cents at $79.99. And that was the business report on PBCJ. I'm Danita Rodney.
In regional news, the Bahamian government is strengthening its ties with Turks and Caicos Islands. Both governments met recently to discuss the maritime boundary and delimitations between the two countries.
Foreign Affairs Minister Fred Mitchell telling us that government's position is clear, and that is to draw a line down the middle. However, Mitchell says they will have to come to a formal agreement on the border.
During the course of the meetings, delegates undertook the technical exercise of delimiting an agreed boundary which is vital for the effective management of the Bahamas maritime resources, as well as its law enforcement activities in the region. Settling unresolved maritime boundaries in accordance with international law is a key part of the government's larger national maritime policy initiative. Starting position is down the middle, the median, and that's the position that we settled with Cuba, and that's the position that we'll be maintaining going along. During the course of the meetings, delegates undertook the technical exercise of delimiting an agreed boundary which is vital for the effective management of the Bahamas maritime resources, as well as its law enforcement activities in the region. Settling unresolved maritime boundaries in accordance with international law is a key part of the government's larger national maritime policy initiative.
Now, this is the third round of formal negotiations between the two countries over the delimitations of the maritime boundary between the two countries. The last set of talks were held in 1996.
The establishment of a maritime border between the Bahamas and the Turks and Caicos will enhance the relative successful cooperative security arrangements that exist between us, as recently embodied in the Bahamas TCI 2022 Maritime Security Agreement. More importantly, it will establish the legal certainty necessary to pursue other beneficial initiatives, whether independently or collaboratively.
In Antigua, political commentator Peter Wickham has weighed in on the challenges plaguing regional travel, taking some regional governments to task for their lack of buy-in regarding the value of regional carrier Liat. Ursel Charles Jr. reports.
Agreements, investment and regulation are all impeding solutions to the intra-regional air transportation challenge. That's according to social commentator Peter Wickham. And while Liat, the Caribbean airline, continues to struggle to meet demand, Wickham decries the lack of investment and policies necessary to engender movement of people across our islands.
I think the presumption is that we can have a private alternative because it relieves the heads of their need to contribute to something like that. But the reality is that the private alternative has also been woefully inadequate. I mean, there needs to be not only regional investment if there can be, but there needs to be an environment in which there's a regulation of whichever carrier is in this space. And I think that that's the thing that has been adequate. So
one of the major problems, he notes, has been the lack of buy-in from shareholder governments as well as the leadership of other Caribbean territories. He fears the iconic value of Liat is only recognized inside Antigua Barbuda.
Whether the heads are in a position where they feel compelled is something that I'm doubtful about. I don't know that Liat occupies the central space in the mind of persons outside of Antigua and Barbuda. And I think that for the vast majority of us, we understand that it's a regional entity that's been lost. I think it's so unfortunate.
He therefore challenges regional heads to recognize Liat as more than an investment for profit, but a necessary mechanism to connect peoples of the region.
I think that we're still at the stage where the heads are saying, well, at least now, I'm not paying for these kind of losses that we would have sustained in the past. If we're looking at building a regional community, our number one priority ought to be how do you connect that community, and there are benefits regarding connecting that community that cannot be monetized.
Wickham says the major downfall of a regional carrier, which was only subsidized by a handful of shareholder governments, while other territories benefited without any injection of capital, was inevitable. For ABS News, I'm Ursel Charles Jr.
In Barbados, changes are coming to the National HIV/AIDS Commission. The announcement from the Minister of People Empowerment and Elder Affairs, Kirk Humphrey. He says there are plans to expand the scope of the department to include chronic non-communicable diseases.
We are now in the process of transitioning the HIV Commission to an NCD Commission, so that not only will they be addressing issues pertaining to HIV, which is now for the most part a chronic ailment. It's not a life-depriving illness, or it should not be, not in a modern society. And to address other NCDs, so that instead of only focusing on HIV, now you're focusing on issues pertaining to health, diabetes, so on, are you eating well, and so on, hypertension. But a lot of these persons migrate to the family, the Ministry of People Empowerment, because a number of the persons that we see are dealing with these other issues.
It is an event for the entire family and promises to be an extravaganza on health and wellness, focusing on home and lifestyle. In this category, we'll be paying attention to things like air filtration, water filtration, renewable energy, environmentally friendly household products. Obviously, we will have the medical professionals on board. Some I'm seeing here with us today as well. We have the fitness aspect, we have nutrition, and we're taking it all the way down to organic farming.
In international news, Georgia's Fulton County District Attorney has requested a trial date for March 4 for former U.S. President Donald Trump and 18 alleged co-conspirators. They are being charged with racketeering in an organized effort to overturn the result of the 2020 presidential election. More from Al Jazeera.
When Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis indicted former U.S. President Donald Trump and his co-defendants this week, she included a rare and powerful charge. The indictment said their alleged efforts to overturn the 2020 presidential election results violated RICO, the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act.
This is the 11th RICO indictment. We followed the same process. We look at the facts, we look at the law, and we bring charges.
The indictment says the defendants conspired and endeavored to conduct and participate in a criminal enterprise in Fulton County, Georgia, and elsewhere. Trump co-defendant Rudy Giuliani made a name for himself as a federal prosecutor going after mob bosses in New York City in the 1980s. Now it is Giuliani who faces a RICO charge.
The RICO statute is a way of incorporating a number of defendants and a number of seemingly different crimes into the same count of an indictment so that you can prosecute the entire scheme as opposed to individual defendants or individual charges in separate indictments.
Giuliani calls the charge an affront to American democracy. Critics call it poetic justice. A law created to target gangsters is now being used to prosecute a wide array of people who allegedly commit crimes together, from teachers to politicians. And perhaps the most aggressive RICO prosecutor in the nation is the one charging Giuliani and Trump in Georgia, the Fulton County District Attorney, Fani Willis. Willis has used RICO before, in 2009, to prosecute Atlanta school managers who systematically cheated to improve student scores on standardized tests. Now she's taking on Trump and 18 alleged co-conspirators.
These 19 people didn't have to sit down in a conference room and all decide, hey, let's overthrow the government, allegedly. But anyhow, they don't have to all agree to the same conspiracy. You can have tacit agreements. And what that means is that you're moving with the conspiracy without actually having a formal agreement.
The racketeering charge is a centerpiece of Willis' case. The 160 acts in the alleged conspiracy take up 58 pages of the 98-page indictment. Now, a jury will decide whether Trump conspired like a mob boss to overturn the 2020 election. John Hendren, Al Jazeera, Atlanta.
In sports, Reggae Girls defender Alison Swaby will be playing for Italian giants AC Milan. This after her stellar performance in the 2023 FIFA Women's World Cup in Australia and New Zealand. She scored Jamaica's only goal during group stage of the World Cup, helping to secure the country's first ever win at the tournament and a historic trip to the knockout rounds. The 26-year-old was on loan at French club Paris Saint-Germain from Angel City FC in the National Women's Soccer League. On Monday, Angel City FC announced that a deal had been reached, but they did not disclose the fee. Former West Indies player Marlon Samuels has been found guilty of 4 offences under the Emirates Cricket Board's Anti-Corruption Code following a hearing by an independent anti-corruption tribunal. More in this report by Wayne Cunningham.
Marlon Samuels was charged by the International Cricket Council in its capacity as a designated anti-corruption official under the ECB code in September 2021 and has been found guilty after he exercised his right to a hearing by the tribunal. The tribunal will now consider the submissions of each party before deciding on the appropriate sanction to be imposed. The Jamaican has been found guilty of failing to disclose to the designated anti-corruption official the receipt of any gift, payment, hospitality, or other benefit that would be made or given in circumstances that would bring the participant or the sport into disrepute. Also found guilty of failing to disclose receipt of hospitality with a value of $750 or more, failing to cooperate with the officials of the investigation, and obstructing or delaying the investigation by concealing information that may have been relevant to the investigation. The tribunal found him guilty on all 4 counts, the first by majority decision and the other 3 by unanimous decisions. Samuels retired in November of 2020 after a career in which he played 71 test matches, 207 one-day internationals, and 67 T20 internationals, and scored over 11,000 international runs and 17 centuries, with his career highs being most notably when he top scored in the T20 World Cup finals of 2012 and 2016. Wayne Cunningham, TTT Sport.
That's the news on PBCJ. Thanks so much for watching.